the part of Ezekiel's 7th chapter now where he's actually verbalizing some more things. This is part 2 of the spoken messages. And basically this whole scenario that the nation of Israel has been blessed so graciously by the Lord that they should love and enjoy this fruitful land. Remember, when Joshua crossed the Jordan River into the land flowing with milk and honey. At that time, it was not a land flowing with milk and honey. It was a high desert situation. All of Israel at that time was nothing. There were no orchards. There were no fields flourishing. There were no crops everywhere you looked, or flocks of sheep or cows or goats. It was a totally different situation. It was basically barren except for those cities that had been inhabited. And what we find going on here is that when the first generation of Hebrews came from captivity into the land that God provided for them, they were very, very intent on their faith and their worship of Yahweh. They were all in. God is so good. He has blessed us abundantly. And boy, before you know it, the land of Israel was just flourishing. All of these barren desert lands had started to become provision for all that they needed. And it was, in a sense, the same way as a bridegroom and a bride who had just been married, Hebrews and God. Now I take you to be mine. They were in love. Everything was good. The church, the people, were worshiping God the right way. They were doing all the things that Moses had instructed them to do, that Joshua had carried on. The things we read about in Deuteronomy and Leviticus. All of this is going well. Everything is good. But then things changed. And rebellion starts. That goes back to this word goy, G-O-Y in English, G-Y in Hebrew. Goy means rebellion, a rebel. These rebellious people started to worship small g gods and idols. And that meant the rebellion starts with the devastation of the land. The devastation of the land. Each time God delivered Israel out of an oppressive situation, every time, they would come to him praising and thanking him, and then within a short order, they're back to worshiping this God, this God, this God, this God. Make an altar here, make an altar there, burn incense to this deity, and all of this stuff. And a lot of this was a part of the lead up, and it prophetically will have to do with the destruction of Jerusalem and the captivity of the nation into Babylon. So what we know that we find out here, first of all, is that Ezekiel announced these coming disasters. I mean, this is the way prophets work. Remember, it can either be a blessing or it can be a curse. They can be talking about things that are really, really good, or they can be talking about things that are really, really bad. And here is Ezekiel in his second spoken message, brings to the people the reality that the land is coming to an end as you have known it. And in essence, this is all a description about a certain judgment that's going to occur because in the first 12 verses here, he'll mention it at least 9 times that the end has come for you guys. Hey, I'm telling you, it's over. You've burned the candle at both ends. It's going to go out. Your relationship with the Lord is gone because you've defiled the land by your sinful activities. And the only way that the land would ever be cleansed would be for the people to pay for their sinfulness. We're blessed because Christ went to the cross. He died and bled to remove our sinfulness. We can receive that cleansing just by becoming a believer. When we ask the Lord into our hearts, everything is good. in this case, where we find the nation of Israel continuing this cycle of, we love you, God, we don't need you, God. We love you, God, we don't need you, God. We got little g gods, we got all these other gods. We don't need you, God, Jehovah. We don't need you, we don't need you. And so eventually, the doom, diadem is a word, the doom that's being prophesied is going to happen. And it's for real. This is not a maybe. This is the same thing that we read about in Isaiah, Jeremiah, in Ezra. In all these things lead to the same point, that there will be a day when the Lord has reached the end of his patience. It's the wait till your dad gets home. It's that kind of a deal. And he's going to reach the end of his patience, and then things are going to change, and you guys are going to regret it. Sorry to tell you. That's the reality of what it is. And the reason for that is kind of mentioned the way it does here. The end is coming. Ezekiel 7:2. And you, son of man, thus says the Lord God to the land of Israel, an end. The end is coming on the four corners of the land. So Ezekiel's telling the population that from every corner of the land that the Lord God Jehovah gave you, everything's going to stop. It's going to be bad news from here on out because you have drifted so far away. And this time he's not going to bail you out because he does it over and over and over and over. And the fact that we see this, verse 3, now the end is upon you, and I will send my anger against you. This is God talking through Ezekiel. Remember, the prophet is saying words, but they're not his words. He's talking directly as God instructed him. I will judge you according to your ways and bring all your abominations, upon you. For my eye will have no pity. A lot of people would say, well, God loves everybody. Why would he hurt them? Well, God's warned them through all of these different prophets. If you keep this up, this is what's going to happen. And, it's the same story today with the families raising kids. Today's a tough time to raise kids. My goodness sakes. I don't know how some parents make it because you have all of the, especially in the urban areas, in cities. My goodness, it's terrible. How you can say to your kid one day, you have to do this. If you don't finish your homework, you're going to go in your bedroom and you're going to sit there. You're no talking to your friends, no Xbox, no computer, no iPhone, no nothing. It doesn't happen. Sadly, in most cases, it's go to your room and play your Xbox. Go to your room with your iPhone. I don't want to see you. Okay, well, you get what you pay for, right? This is kind of what's happened here. For my eye will have no pity on you, nor will I spare you, but I will bring your ways upon you, and your abominations will be among you. Then you will know that I am the Lord. That would be like the parents say, now you do this one more time, and you're going to find out exactly why I have a razor strap. You're going to feel the urgent requirement called minding. This is a whole part of it. Verse 5, thus says the Lord God, a disaster, unique disaster. Behold, it is coming. Remember, up until this time, basically what would happen to the Hebrew people, they would be accosted by a neighboring faction. Whether it would be the Amorites, like Joanne talked about in the scripture from Joshua, the Amorites, or any of these other different tribes that surrounded Jerusalem. They would attack, and they would try their best to destroy the Hebrews because they were so powerful and they were rich. Remember, they had lots of money. And every time they would do that, the Lord would bail them out. People would attack, he'd bail them out. And we have all the stories throughout the Old Testament that speak of the battles that were won. Outnumbered 10-1. God says, don't worry about it. They'll kill each other. And he clicks his fingers or whatever, and then all the enemy guys turn their swords against the guy next to them. And the Israelites stand by watching, and all these guys are falling over dead. But God's reached the end of his rope. Behold, it is coming. An end is coming. The end has come. It has awakened against you. Behold, it has come. Your doom has come to you, O inhabitant of the land. That means every person that lives there. The time has come. The day is near. Tumult rather than joyful shouting on the mountain. Now I will shortly pour out my wrath on you and spend my anger against you, judge you according to your ways, and bring on you all your abominations. It's relentless. What God is telling these people, all you have to do is change your ways. But they didn't. And he says, over and over, the end is here. You're done. It's history. My eye will show no pity, nor will I spare. I will repay you according to your ways. While your abominations are in your midst, then you will know that I, the Lord, do the smiting. So remember, Ezekiel is talking about this stuff, future time. It's not happening today. When Ezekiel's talking, he's talking about what's going to happen. This is your future if you don't change. God always gave the nation an opportunity to turn around and right their ways. He always gave them one more chance. You know, we like to have a second chance at things. God gave Israel chance after chance after chance after chance. They continued to reject him. So he has come to that point. You will know that I, the Lord, do the smiting. And smiting in the Hebrew is a word that means revenge. I'll make everything even again. Your abominations are going to fall back on you. And this is pictured in several different ways. He gives us, Ezekiel in verses 10 through the end of the chapter, or almost to the end of the chapter, gives us all these different vivid language pictures. You know, our mind's eye, when we're talking about things like this, our mind's eye is seeing that. You know, when we talked a couple of weeks ago about the prophecy of the basic famine that's going to occur in Jerusalem, and part of that famine was the adults eating their children. Now, immediately your mind goes to a picture of, a 10-year-old on a spit and they're turning him over the fire. We're going to have roast kid today. Yeah, he was good. He chubby little boy. Yeah. That's the kind of disgusting stuff that the prophets were trying to get Israel to see. This is your future. This is what's going to happen. All you got to do is turn around and get back to God worship. And the one picture that begins here with Ezekiel using this vivid language that he's gifted with. God says, Son of man, proclaim this to the people. Okay, what he says after that point, that's coming right from God. Son of man, that's his nickname for, in this case, Ezekiel. He says, what we're going to do is I want you to tell them about this image using nature. And what he does is he uses a budding, and in the outline here I kind of messed up my printing, but it's a budding rod. The rod would be an acronym that would have been a picture of either olive trees, grapevines, fruit trees that starts young, a budding one. So it's a new plant and it's starting to grow. And what he's saying is, what you need to do is, think about this as your chance to become a new people. All you have to do is come back to the Lord, recognize God's laws with the temple, recognize the priests and their teaching, and just fall back in line here. But the people disobey. And they go, we don't need this. Okay? Wrong answer. I mean, that's as bad as saying river or state. You know, it's right, Joanne? You can't have it both ways. And the reality for what happens then is these people are receiving this word that says, you know, at a future time, Jerusalem's going to be sacked and destroyed and leveled, and the temple's going to be destroyed unless you change. Well, they didn't want to hear it. They didn't believe it. They didn't want to be that budding rod, that budding stem, the trunk of a future tree that would have provided nourishment. They were not going to do it. God had told them through the prophets that there would be an invading army from the north that doesn't speak your language. And they're going to come and they're just going to just take all of you. They're going to destroy you. And the obvious reference would have been Babylon, you know, King Nebuchadnezzar and his army, which eventually show up on the scene. But the reality for what we see here is that a blossoming tree that's going to be providing ripe fruit in a future time is not in their future. Their tree is going to blossom in wickedness because they're worshiping small g deities. And that means we take another look at what he might have ventured to say in other ways. But that rod has budded, arrogance has blossomed. This is the word pictures that Ezekiel would use. What's it blossoming? Well, violence has grown into a rod of wickedness. It's not an olive tree anymore. It's wickedness. That's what it's providing for all the people. None of them shall remain, none of their people, none of their wealth, nor anything eminent among them. We're going to see here in a bit, over the next several weeks, the people get rid of all their valuables because they have no value. Just think about the guy who's worked all his life and saved and scrimped and saved. He's got all these different gold things and silver things, and he's on top of the world. And then all of a sudden one day, they're worthless. Not a zero. It would be like our bank accounts. Joanne's sitting there smiling. It'd be like our bank accounts at the credit union. One day we have $25,000, and then you call and check and say, what's my balance today? And Joanne says, what balance? Oh, Bank of America. Oh, okay. Not the credit union. Okay. Yeah, your money's safe with the credit union. But that would be the same thing. Here's these people. There's a future time when all of their wealth is going to be zero. And we'll learn about that in weeks to come. Isaiah 10:5, woe to Assyria, the rod of my anger and the staff of those in my indignation. You know, there was a time in the background of what was going on in the area where Assyria was this mighty, it's Syria today. Assyria was this mighty opponent. And basically what happened back then was through the prophet Isaiah, God basically said, you know, you're messing with the wrong guy here. You don't want to mess with Yahweh because guess what? My anger and the staff in whose hands is my indignation. I'm going to take care of you. And that was one of those moments when Israel was doing everything right. God stepped in, took care of it. Assyria was like, they had no place anymore. They were defeated. They were set apart. And God, in his way, which is really pretty cool here, how he starts this process that had been a part of Hebrew culture. We call it the year of Jubilee. And today it's still worshipped by Orthodox Jewish people. Every seventh year, the vineyards, the fields, everything in Israel stops. That whole year, the seventh year, the year of Jubilee, they let the land replenish itself. You know, it would be like the farmers here. They plow up in the fall after the harvest. They plow everything up. They don't replant. They let the earth rest. And then year one after year 7, year 1 starts a new cycle, and they plant, and whew, God blesses it, and it's abundant. The year of Jubilee, that's a part of the business cycle that we now see Ezekiel talking about. This is the part where we realize that God is going to bless them in a special way. All they have to do is follow the rules. Everything gets back to worship. Everything gets back to doing the things that God had proclaimed to be done. Verse 12, the time has come, the day has arrived, let not the buyer rejoice nor the seller mourn, for wrath is against all their multitude. Indeed, the seller will not regain what he sold as long as they both live. For the vision regarding all their multitude will not be averted, nor will any of them maintain his life by his iniquity. He's setting the stage here for the people to know that there's going to be a day when everything you've worked for is meaningless because you've been doing it for self, not for God. And the reality for all of it that happens, by the way, when we get to the Babylonian exile, people buy the land, they have 6 years of plenty, and then they're supposed to rest for a year. Well, they quit doing that. Didn't mean a thing. They just kept making it, never gave the land time to rest. And in essence, the people that say bought this land for 500 pieces of silver, 10,000 shekels, they bought this land and it's gone like great and they're having a good living and they're selling in the marketplace and everything's good, and they go to year 7 and keep doing it. Then the next year, all of a sudden, they got nothing because they defiled God's law. And that land that they paid 500 pieces of silver for now is worth 0 pieces of silver. And so they're destitute. And it's all because this is the kind of business relationship that Ezekiel uses to help the people to understand that you just can't continue the way you're going. When all of this was put together, and it happened when Moses was trying to saddle up all of these literally hundreds of thousands of Hebrews and getting them to pay attention. Verse number 3 here, he's telling them exactly what we have to do. When you are in the land, you have to do this. 6 years you shall sow your field, 6 years you shall prune your vineyard and gather its crops. But during the 7th year, the land shall have a Sabbath rest, a Sabbath to the Lord. You shall not sow your field nor prune your vineyards. Verse 5, you shall not reap. The land shall have a sabbatical year. Verse 6, the Sabbath produce of the land for food. Part of this whole plan was you store up that 6th year, you store up what you're going to need for a whole year. And that 6th year was the most productive year for the crops and the flocks and all that stuff. And it gave the people an opportunity to fill their storehouses, their cupboards, their places where they keep everything. It gave them a chance to have enough to last the whole year. Nobody was without anything. It's not like today where on the news last night they showed, I forget the city, I don't know what city it was, but the run on eggs. People literally were running out of the store after paying for these square boxes, not the long kind. I guess that's like 2 dozen in a box. I buy the 6 eggs. But 2 of those, and they're running out. They want to get in the car. And the interviewer says, well, why are you running? He says, well, I don't want somebody to mug me. I mean, I've got 24 eggs here. I mean, it's like, you're going to go, deposit it in the credit union? They're going to start banking eggs? Well, they're $3 a piece. What? This is insane. Anyhow, all of this is to say that the Hebrews had a chance to follow God's rules, which they had done generationally, hundreds of years. They had a Jubilee year. Everybody rested. Everybody had plenty of food. And the next year came up. They start all over again. Not the case here. you shall have all its crops to eat. Deuteronomy. During that Jubilee year, this is another interesting part of the business side of Hebrew life. All debts would be forgiven. Imagine that. That'd be pretty good business for the credit union. Every 7th year, you take all those people that bought a house and you owe, I don't know, 15,000 shekels. And Joanne calls them up and says, okay, here's your deed. Your house is paid for. What? Yeah, it's Jubilee year. Everything's free. Wow, no debts. And that's the reality of how it worked in Hebrew life and society. One of the reasons why all of that stopped was because of the people who were, dare I say, greedy. Well, I'm not going to give you freedom from all that money that you borrowed from me. Too bad, so sad. You still owe me. You're going to be my slave for 20 years. Oh, and that's what happened. They walked away from God's plan. This is the manner of remission. Every creditor shall release what? This is verse 2. Shall release what he has loaned to his neighbor. He shall not exact it of his neighbor and his brother, because the Lord's remission has been proclaimed. No questions asked. You owe this money to your neighbor owes you this money, just tell him it's taken care of. Verse 4, however, there will be no poor among you, since the Lord will surely bless you in the land which the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance to possess. So, the guy that's loaned money to everybody in the town, Mr. Money Pockets, deep pockets, lots of money. He loans money to everybody. Jubilee comes along. He says, okay, everybody's debts are paid. Nobody owes me anything. His wealth, based on God's promise, increases. Because he has followed the law. He's gone through the Jubilee year, forgiven the debts. He gave up all this money, and people were like, you're crazy. No, I'm okay. And then that next year, all of a sudden, he gets more wealth than he had before. God is pretty cool. You stop and think about this. That's what omniscience is. That's God's everywhere, every time, every place, in every circumstance. He can do whatever he wants. I mean, if he felt like our fan blades should be covered in gold, they'd be covered in gold. Maybe tomorrow, I don't know. But if you only listen obediently to the voice of God, it's so simple, isn't it? We're reading this now. Ezekiel's telling it to the people. This is hundreds of years before Babylon. And he's telling them, all you have to do is be obedient to God's laws. It must have been so frustrating, to keep saying all this stuff over and over, and the people just refused. And you will rule over many nations, but they will not rule over you. All you got to do is follow the rules. Just obey. Everything will be all right, Jeremiah 29:10, for thus says the Lord, when 70 years have been completed for Babylon, I will visit you and fulfill my good word to you to bring you back to this place. Jeremiah is telling the people, and this is how we know they were in captivity for 70 years. That's when they were slaves in Babylon. When it's all done, guess what? I'm going to bring you back and life's going to be better than ever. Wow. So it wasn't just Ezekiel, it wasn't just Ezra, it wasn't just Nehemiah, it wasn't just Elijah, it's everybody. In this case, it was Jeremiah. My good word to you to bring you back to this place. And then we see this third vision that he has as being a watchman. And we've talked about being a watchman before. It's when you have the ability to kind of like give the people the instructions to live at that time. You look out for them. The watchman's responsibility was to keep them out of danger. The watchman walked the walls. We'd call him a sentry. S-E-N-T, sentry. We would say the sentry's up there and he's marching around with his bow and arrow or sword or whatever, and he's looking and looking, and if a hostile force starts to come towards the wall, he sounds the alarm. rings the bell, and everybody cuts to the wall, and they have a battle, and they win. If the watchman falls asleep, well, those enemy guys come up, they get ladders, climb in, and they take over the city. So the watchman was a pretty important guy. My wrath is against all their multitude. The sword is outside, and the plague and the famine are within. This is Ezekiel's prophecy about what's going to happen to the city of Jerusalem. Outside, people are going to die by the sword. Inside, they're going to die by famine and plague. And that's exactly what will happen. The people that escape are the ones who escaped, and the phrasing has to do with the fact that they are like mourning doves, fluttering around, going in every different direction. And it's one of those word pictures that, when a bird is frightened, you'll see if there's, like in my backyard, we have blackbirds and crows, and they're sitting there pecking and looking for stuff. And I knock on the window, and they go like this. And one goes here, and one goes there, and one goes there. I mean, it's not like they march out in single file. They're helter-skelter. That's what a mourning dove does. They land on the roof of my neighbor's house, and they go, whoo, whoo. And I'll go out on the sidewalk and clap my hands, and whew, they're gone. It's what these people are. These are the ones that are going to escape. Verse 16. They will be on the mountains like doves of the valleys, all of them mourning, each over his own iniquity. All hands will hang limp, and knees will become like water. The people that escape the desolation of Jerusalem are going to be so exhausted, and remember, there's been a famine. There's been all this stuff going on. And they would be like those prisoners that were just released, in Gaza, emaciated, all gaunt and thin and no strength. Shame will be on all their faces because they were part of those who didn't believe. Isaiah 59, they will moan sadly like doves. We hope for justice, but there is none. For salvation, but it is far from us. Going backwards in Ezekiel to verse 9 of chapter 6, then those of you who escape will remember me. This is talking about this group of people who eventually will be known as the remnant. They're going to be a part of what is valuable to the future. Then they will know that I am the Lord. He says it again. Remember last week I closed by saying he mentions this like 60 times. 60 times he says, then they will know that I am the Lord. Over and over and over. People get rid of all their valuables. That's the thing I was just mentioning a few verses ago, that when people start to find out that everything they possess has no value, the Babylonians don't care. They're not going to worry about anything that you own. So the people are trying to get away, and what do? Well, you can only pack so much, right? So all the heavy stuff, gold, silver, jewels, they toss it. It has no value. And that's the reality of what's going on here. It's that they have put themselves in a position that is not good. In verse 19, their gold will not be able to deliver them. In other words, a lot of times people think, well, I'll just buy my way out of this. Well, it wasn't going to happen. That's not going to happen. Their iniquity has become an occasion of stumbling. They can't get out of their own way because of how they have lived and what they have done in relationship to their worshiping Yahweh. They just are failures. Verse 20 at the end, I will make it an abhorrent thing to them. All the stuff that's going to happen is that they're not worshiping God. They're not paying attention whatsoever. I will give it into the hands of the foreigners as plunder. Okay, so the Babylonians, the Persians are going to attack Jerusalem, and guess what? They're going to leave with all the gold and all the silver because it's just laying around. And we find out later on, we'll see what's going on in captivity in Babylon. And Nebuchadnezzar and all the kings following him up to Cyrus, they all have this treasury of stuff. It's filling up rooms and rooms and rooms in the palace that they were able to take. I will give it into the hands of the foreigners as plunder and to the wicked of the earth as spoil, and they will profane it. And what happens in Babylon, we learn later on that they have these festivals and parties that go on for weeks at a time, and all they do is discuss how disgusting the Hebrews were and how fortunate we were that they wanted us to have all of this wonderful gold and silver. That was their only good part. Other than that, they're just scum, worthless. It's total disruption from the disasters. That's what will occur in Jerusalem and in all of Israel at that time. Total destruction. They will profane my secret place. In other words, the secret place for God was the Holy of Holies. Remember in the temple, you had the main courtyard area, you had the inner worship area, and then you had behind the curtain, you had the place where only the high priest went. That's where the Ark of the Covenant was. And that was the secret place. Verse 23, oh, the city is full of violence. I will bring the worst of the nations, and they will possess their houses. I will also make the pride of the strong ones cease, and their holy places will be profaned. When anguish comes, they will seek peace, but there will be none. And then the end of 26, the law will be lost from the priest and counsel from the elders. And in a sense, the law didn't exist anymore because the priests and the elders, they had no control over the worship of the people. They had all these little altars, mini altars, M-I-N-I, many small altars with little statues that the people would bow down before. And, we'll see here in the weeks to come about how all of that started to unfold in such a way. Verse 27, the king will mourn, the prince will be clothed with horror, and the hands of the people of the land will tremble. This is because of the onslaught that's coming. According to their conduct, I will deal with them, and by their judgments I will judge them, and they will know that I am the Lord. And what we'll find out eventually is that, when Babylon invades Jerusalem and takes away all the people, the king and the king's sons, they're all captured. And what happens to them? They all get exterminated. That was because God had told Nebuchadnezzar, these people are evil, deal with them. He used Nebuchadnezzar to fulfill exactly what was necessary. Isaiah 8:20, to the law and to the testimony, if they do not speak according to this word, it is because they have no dawn. Meaning, they're not going to see the sunrise tomorrow. All these people in leadership that are messing things up, they're not going to see tomorrow. When anguish comes, they will seek peace, but there will be none. We ask for peace, but there is no peace. We can't find peace. There is no peace. When we think about how the prophets were able to express in human terms exactly what was going to beset them, it would be like the fortune tellers. I think I talked about this last week. The fortune tellers that we go to, and they sit you down in a dark room in front of this globe, and she rubs the globe and says, oh, yeah, your Uncle Fred wants to talk to you. And then behind the curtain there's a guy, and he's going, hey, what's up? Oh, Uncle Fred, how you doing? Hey, I'm good. Life is good here. And then the fortune teller, next week you want to go back to her, and there's a sign in the window, right? And it says, closed due to unforeseen circumstances. So this is what it's come down to for the people. And the reality as we close this morning is that no political power can overrule the will of God. Period. Nothing in humanity can end what God has decreed. It will be done. So, we're going to read Psalm 33, 10 and 11 here as we prepare to end. Together, book, chapter, verse. Psalm 33, 10 and 11. The Lord nullifies the counsel of the nations. He frustrates the plans of the peoples. The counsel of the Lord stands forever. The plans of his heart from generation to generation will not end.